Hey guys, my name is Jessica. I am from Green Fever SA and thank you for joining me. In today's video, I want to start sort of a new series which is going to be called Planter Kits. What I basically want to do is I want to take a specific type of plant, condense it into as short a video as possible with the basic care needs that are from my experience. I am by no means a botanist or a planty expert. This is just going to be my advice for beginner plant parents. Today we're going to be talking about the gorgeous Monstera Deliciosa. As we all know, this has become an extremely popular house plant, and I can see why. One, it's gorgeous. Two, out of a scale of 1 to 10, I would most certainly give this plant a 9 on the ease of looking after. It has very simple, basic care needs, and if you get those right, this plant is going to be quite happy with you and you're not going to struggle too much. When you bring this gorgeous guy home, you're going to want to find the perfect spot for it. Somewhere that is nice and light, but it really doesn't like any direct sunlight. It will burn the leaves. They can do well in medium light to low light. They just won't grow as quick, which is fine. It depends what you want the plant for. If you buy a large plant and you find the perfect spot for it in your house and it's the perfect size, then maybe you don't want the plant to grow, and so leaving it in a medium to lower light is perfect. This is the first Monstera that I ever got, and it is actually in a more medium to lower light area. He does grow in the summer. In the winter, I bring him into my bedroom where he gets a lot more light. The next thing is to really consider humidity. These plants don't need humidity, but they really do appreciate it. A little bit of a higher humidity. I live in Joburg, South Africa, where in the winters it gets really dry to the point where it sits at probably like 20% humidity. That's why I bring him out of my lounge and into my bedroom where the humidity is always a little bit higher, or quite a lot higher, because my calatheas normally chill in my bedroom. But when the humidity is quite low, so if you look at this, the tips over here, I took a little bit too long to bring this guy in to a more humid environment, and so his little edges have gone brown. A higher humidity is definitely going to give you better results. You're going to have prettier looking leaves without any brown tips, as well as you can have bigger leaves with more fenestrations and just an overall happier plant that's probably going to grow quicker for you. Somewhere between 50 and 60, and these guys are really going to be a lot happier. It can be below and it's fine, you're not going to kill the plant. If you're not sure, you can quite easily get a humidity reader. At the moment you can see it's on 59% in my bedroom. It's in my hand now, so it's moved up to 61, but it is 22 degrees and it is sitting on, let's say, 59% humidity, which is quite low, if I'm honest. This room I normally try keep over 65, so this guy over here is the immature version of the Monstera Deliciosa. As you can see, it doesn't have any of the fenestrations that we love. They all start off just as these sort of standard leaves. As you can see, this leaf is literally just opened, this one over here. You can see it hasn't really hardened off yet, and we have another new one growing here. Apparently on sort of the 5th to 6th leaf is when you will start seeing fenestrations if your plant is getting the right conditions. If you have a look at, and I'm going to show you on this guy, you can see that there is actually 2 separate growth points. So this is a plant growing off here, and then this is a plant growing off here. This one is a lot more immature than this one. And if we count the leaves, this is over here would be 1, 2, this leaf would be over here 3, that leaf back there is 4, and then this leaf over here in the front is 5, still got no fenestrations, and then this is now my 6th leaf, which has just started to unravel. I actually thought it wasn't going to have any fenestrations, but it has two very beautiful fenestrations. As you can see, it's literally just finished unfurling. Then if you look at this row over here, this was the first, second, third. One leaf had actually died, so this would have actually been the fourth leaf, and we got one fenestration over there. And then we got a bigger leaf over here with a bigger fenestration. We got this gorgeous leaf with loads of fenestrations and nice and big. And then progress to this leaf. We still got loads of fenestrations on the next leaf. The leaf just came out a little bit smaller. And then at the back, it's going to be easier to show you from this view, we have a gorgeous new leaf coming. And he looks like he has quite a few fenestrations as well. That is basically sort of how the fenestrations grow, and as the plant matures, it's going to get more fenestrations, and each leaf is just slowly going to get bigger and beautiful. You would know if your conditions are not as good as they were or as good as where the plant came from if you start getting smaller leaves with less fenestrations. Let's say you do bring it home from a nursery, and this leaf that you grow in your home is smaller with less fenestrations. I wouldn't worry about it too much, and I wouldn't move it, because going from the growers to your house, it is probably always going to be not as great conditions, unfortunately. But you know, if you start seeing that the leaves from there still progress to get smaller with less fenestrations, you might want to consider re-looking at a new spot for it, or re-looking at its conditions and seeing if it's got, you know, if you're missing something or if there's something that you can improve. You know, if your first leaf comes, it's a bit smaller with less fenestrations, but then it slowly starts to progress up from that leaf, then there's no problem, you're good to go. So this guy over here also has a new leaf, so I'm just going to show you him because, wow, what an arm. That is just opened. He has 3 on either side. Unfortunately, he had actually gotten stuck over here. So I actually had to help the top bit get out, and he had actually torn himself before I actually was able, realized. In a few more days, he's going to harden off and look like this. These plants do love to grow on trees and to grow up moss poles, and if you allow it to do that, it is going to get humongous. The leaves are going to get bigger, and the way that it does that is through these aerial roots. So if you see these guys growing out, don't worry about it, don't stress about it, it's a good thing. If you have a moss pole, these can grow into the moss pole and then help the plant to climb up. It's almost like little fingers that are helping the plant grow towards either better light or warmer conditions, or just to spread throughout the rainforest, because that's generally where they're from. If you wanted to propagate your Monstera and make more Monsteras from your one, the aerial roots are a great way to tell where to propagate. That means it has a viable node. Then all you would need to do is cut with a nice sharp blade, sort of in this position. This over here would be considered a node. This, where this aerial root's coming from, is considered a node, and this over here is considered a node. So cutting between 2 nodes is where you would be able to grow your plant. Now, when it comes to watering, these really are quite easy. In winter, I was watering it between 7 to 10 days, so sometimes a week, sometimes a week and a half. There's a lot of different factors that could influence how often you should water or shouldn't be watering. The season is one of them, the size of the plant and pot ratio is another thing, and the position that the plant is in your house is another factor. So those 3 things, among others, would determine how often you need to be watering your plant. But with the Monsteras, they really don't want to be sitting in water. They do like to dry out between watering, so you need good drainage holes so that they don't sit in water in your pots. That's why I normally always keep my plants in a nursery pot, and I just either have a basket, which is what this guy goes in, or a cover pot, which, as you can see, that goes in. So baskets and cover pots, I normally put those over and I keep them in their nursery pots. The reason for that is the nursery pots have loads of drainage holes. The chances of just one hole getting blocked up, there's a lot less chance of that happening. But overwatered, it starts to sort of droop a little bit, its leaves start to curl in a little bit. So that's one sign. If your leaves start to go yellow, that is another sign. Be careful with yellow leaves. It could be a sign that it's not getting enough water, and so that's when you sort of got to play into your own sort of general knowledge per se. And you know, if you know that you've recently watered the plants and the leaves are going yellow, then it's probably overwatering. And if you know that you haven't watered the plant for 3 weeks and the leaves are going yellow, then chances are it's underwatering. But generally what I do with these guys is I give them a really nice thorough soak, and I make sure all the water pours out the bottom, like just pours out. You want to make sure that it is in a nice airy soil that's fast draining. Make sure that, you know, within about 5 seconds some water starts to pour out. If you have a catchment tray, which is like this and like that, or it just sits in a cover pot, make sure after about 15 minutes of watering to 30 minutes of watering, you empty whatever water is still in here. So, you know, if you take it off now, this has still got water in it, you dump that water out because it's water that the plant doesn't need. So don't leave it in there to sit. If you're not sure how to tell if your soil is wet or dry, if you don't want to have to guess too much, you can get a moisture meter. It's a really surefire way of making sure that you are not overwatering or underwatering your plants. All you have to do is you stick your moisture meter in the soil. Generally you stick it in like a few places and then you leave it there for about 5 minutes, they say. I generally don't leave it that long. So you can see I watered this guy yesterday and he is sitting on 3, I think. Yeah, so I know that he's not going to need watering until it goes down to dry. Because these guys have really big beautiful leaves, it's really important to actually wipe them down. I wipe my leaves down every Saturday. I have a look to make sure that none of my plants have any bugs, and I just give them some TLC. Because their leaves are so large, they do tend to collect or hold a lot of dust, especially if you do have a humidifier in the room. Leaves that have moisture sitting on the surface, and that just the dust loves to cling to that. So you do want to wipe the leaves down to get all the dust off so that your plant can actually photosynthesize and take in as much of the light that you are giving it, actually take it in and use it. That also gives you an opportunity and a good chance to look at your plant, make sure there's no bugs, make sure there's no sunburn, make sure there's, you know, no other issues that you don't really see when you just admire your plant from a distance or water. When it comes to potting your plants as well, if they are growing and pumping out loads of leaves, you could probably do with repotting them every year. But if you want to keep your plants a little bit on the smaller side, and maybe you don't want to allow it to get too big, you can just trim the roots and keep them a bit smaller. But if you want it to get really nice and big and keep growing and keep, you know, taking over your room, then keep going up a pot size every year or so. And if roots are really bulging out the bottom, it's probably a sign of repotting. But they do like to be a bit root bound as well. I wouldn't actually do it more than once a year. They don't like to be, most plants don't want to be disturbed too much, and they do like to be a little bit more root bound. We wait until new leaves have unfurled and somewhat hardened off. I just don't want to run the risk of repotting and causing damage to a new leaf. I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, you are more than welcome to ask me in the comments below. If you have any other tips that you would like to give, either me or anybody else who is obviously looking for advice and some care tips on their Monstera Deliciosa, then please comment in the comments below. We would all love to learn from everybody. Hey Beanie Pie! If you would like to see more videos, then please do subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope I see you next time.